"You're not putting in any effort at all, Valentina," Derek said, his voice coldly professional through my laptop speakers. "The numbers don't lie. Your productivity metrics have been consistently below target for the past quarter." I stared at my screen in disbelief, the Zoom grid showing Derek's impassive face alongside 3 HR representatives I barely recognized. My hand instinctively went to my headscarf, a bright purple one today, covering what remained of my hair after 6 months of chemotherapy. "I've maintained all my client relationships," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the way my heart hammered in my chest. Garrison Publishing renewed their contract last week. Riverside Hotels expanded their order by 30%. Derek sighed, the sound distorted through my speakers. "Relationship management isn't enough. We need people who can drive quantifiable growth. The executive team has made the difficult decision to terminate your employment, effective immediately." My name is Valentina Sokolov, 42 years old, marketing director for Pinnacle Hospitality Group, or at least I was until this moment. For 15 years, I've helped hotels and resorts across the country build their brands and increase bookings. Even during the 6 months since my breast cancer diagnosis, I hadn't missed a single day of work, scheduling chemo treatments for Friday afternoons so I could recover over the weekend. "I understand," I said quietly, though I didn't understand at all. "Is there anything else?" The HR representative, Jocelyn, stepped in with practiced efficiency. "We'll send your final paycheck next Friday, along with information about continuing your health insurance. Your company laptop and phone will be remotely deactivated at the end of this call. Please mail them back within 5 business days." I nodded, thinking of my 2 children who would be home from school soon. How would I tell them? How would my husband and I manage the medical bills without my insurance? "Thank you for the opportunity," I said automatically, years of professionalism taking over where emotion threatened to break through. "I wish you all the best." As I clicked the Leave Meeting button, a notification popped up on my screen, an email from Anthony Werner, CEO of one of our largest hotel clients. "Looking forward to our strategy session next week. Your insights have been invaluable during our rebrand." They didn't know. My clients hadn't been informed I was being let go. As I closed my laptop, my phone buzzed with a text from Kayla, my colleague and closest friend at Pinnacle. "Call me now." When I did, her voice was tight with anger. "They just announced your termination in the all-hands meeting. Derek said you'd been underperforming for months, and that they couldn't carry dead weight during a growth phase. Val, it was brutal." I felt suddenly cold. This wasn't just a termination. It was character assassination, and I had a sinking feeling that the worst was yet to come. My journey with Pinnacle Hospitality Group began 15 years ago when I joined as a marketing coordinator fresh out of graduate school. The company was small then, just 20 employees helping independent hotels compete with major chains. I grew alongside Pinnacle, eventually leading a team of 10 and managing our highest value client relationships. Under Leonard, the previous marketing director who became my mentor, I thrived. When he retired 3 years ago, promoting me was a natural decision. My department consistently delivered results, with client retention rates above 90% and year-over-year revenue growth exceeding targets. Everything changed 6 months ago with a double blow: my cancer diagnosis and Derek Turner's arrival as the new chief operating officer. The diagnosis came first: stage 2 breast cancer requiring immediate surgery, followed by aggressive chemotherapy. I told Leonard first, who was still on the board despite his retirement. His support was immediate and unwavering. "Take whatever time you need," he assured me. "Your job will be waiting." But I didn't take time off. Instead, I worked around my treatment schedule, joining meetings from the oncology center when necessary, never missing a client call or deadline. My team stepped up magnificently, covering for me on days when the fatigue was overwhelming, but I remained firmly at the helm. 2 months into my treatment, Derek joined Pinnacle, brought in by investors to optimize operations ahead of a potential acquisition. In his early 40s with an MBA from an elite school, Derek introduced new performance tracking systems and productivity metrics. Initially, I welcomed the structure, believing it would highlight my department's strengths. The first warning sign came during a leadership meeting when Derek questioned my decision to assign our newest client to Jamie, my most experienced team member. Jamie's metrics are below average, he pointed out, gesturing to a dashboard I'd never seen before. Wouldn't Tasha be a better fit? Her numbers are significantly higher. I explained that metrics didn't capture Jamie's relationship-building skills, which were exactly what this particular client needed. Derek nodded, but I caught a flash of irritation in his eyes. Similar moments followed. Derek began excluding me from strategic discussions. My input in meetings was increasingly dismissed or interrupted. The metrics he emphasized seemed strangely designed to minimize my team's accomplishments while highlighting our few shortcomings. Despite this, I trusted the system. I believed that 15 years of demonstrated value couldn't be erased by a few months of new metrics, especially given my health circumstances. I documented everything: my projects, client interactions, team leadership, partly from habit and partly from a growing, unacknowledged sense that I might someday need to prove my worth. I never imagined that day would come so soon, or so brutally. The morning after my termination, I woke early, my body still programmed to its work schedule despite everything. Beside me, my husband David slept soundly, exhausted after our late-night conversation about finances and health insurance options. I slipped out of bed, made coffee, and opened my personal laptop. First, I needed to understand the extent of the damage. I logged into my LinkedIn account to update my profile and found 3 messages from clients who had somehow already heard about my departure. Their confusion was evident. They'd had no warning, no transition plan. "Is everything okay? We were counting on your guidance for our summer campaign," wrote the marketing manager from Harborview Resorts. I crafted careful responses, professional to the end, assuring them I'd connect them with appropriate contacts at Pinnacle. But each message reinforced the growing knot of anger in my stomach. These were relationships I'd built and nurtured for years, some even during hospital stays, and Derek had severed them without a thought. As I scrolled through my emails, I found a message from Leonard, time-stamped 1:23 a.m. "Just heard the news. Call me. We need to talk." When I reached him an hour later, his normally calm voice was tight with controlled fury. "This is unconscionable, Valentina. The board wasn't consulted about your termination. Derek presented it as a done deal during yesterday's executive briefing." "Can they do that?" I asked. "Fire a director without board approval?" "Technically, yes. Derek has hiring and firing authority, but it's a terrible decision, and the way he's handling it is even worse." Leonard paused. "He's presenting your medical leave as absenteeism." "Medical leave?" "I never took leave," I protested. "I worked through every treatment." "I know, but Derek's telling a different story. According to him, your performance has been suffering for months because you've been distracted by personal issues." The injustice of it stole my breath. I had meticulously documented every project, every client interaction, precisely to prevent this kind of misrepresentation. Even on my worst days, when the chemo left me nauseated and exhausted, I'd maintained my responsibilities. "There's more," Leonard continued heavily. "There's going to be a restructuring of the marketing department. Derek's bringing in someone from his previous company to replace you. Based on the timeline, this has been planned for weeks." The realization hit me like physical pain. I hadn't been fired for performance issues. Those were just the excuse. Derek had wanted me gone from the beginning, had likely been building a case against me while I was fighting for my life. "What can I do?" I asked, hating the helplessness in my voice. "For now, focus on your health and family," Leonard advised. "But document everything. Your accomplishments, the timing of your termination relative to your treatment, any communications that contradict Derek's claims." After we hung up, I sat motionless at my kitchen table, watching the morning sunlight creep across the floor. I had given Pinnacle 15 years of my life, had worked through cancer treatment without complaint, and in return, I'd been discarded with a lie. For the first time since my diagnosis, I allowed myself to cry, not from sadness, but from pure, clarifying anger. By the following week, the reality of my situation had crystallized into something harder and clearer. My final paycheck had arrived, along with COBRA paperwork outlining the exorbitant cost of maintaining my health insurance, nearly $2,000 per month for my family. My next oncology appointment was in 2 weeks, with another round of maintenance therapy scheduled. I couldn't afford to lose coverage. "We'll figure it out," David assured me, though the worry lines around his eyes had deepened. As a high school art teacher, his salary alone couldn't sustain our family and cover my medical expenses. I began applying for positions immediately, leveraging my industry contacts. Several interviews were quickly arranged. My reputation in hospitality marketing remained strong despite Derek's attempts to undermine it. But each conversation stalled when I disclosed my health situation. No one explicitly mentioned my cancer as an issue, but follow-up calls mysteriously never came. Meanwhile, my former clients continued reaching out, confused about why they'd been reassigned without warning. I maintained professionalism, never disparaging Pinnacle, but the pattern was clear. Relationships I'd carefully built were being damaged by Derek's abrupt transition process. After a particularly frustrating day of interviews, I received a call from Jasmine Davis, my former assistant at Pinnacle. "Val, I shouldn't be telling you this, but they're dismantling everything you built," she whispered, clearly calling from somewhere private. "Derek's new director is eliminating all our customized client approaches. They're implementing a standardized service model regardless of client needs." "That won't work," I said automatically. "The boutique properties need completely different strategies from the resort chains." "We know that. The team knows that. But Derek insists this is more efficient." I could hear the air quotes in her voice. "Clients are already pushing back. Garrison is threatening to walk." Garrison Publishing was Pinnacle's oldest client, accounting for nearly 15% of the company's revenue. Their boutique literary-themed hotels required highly specialized marketing approaches I had personally developed. "Has anyone shown Derek the retention numbers, the client satisfaction scores?" I asked. "He doesn't care about those metrics. He only looks at cost per acquisition and marketing spend ratios." Jasmine paused. "There's something else. HR is asking questions about your treatment schedule, whether you ever worked during medical appointments. They're building some kind of case retroactively." Cold anger settled in my chest. They weren't just replacing me, they were trying to justify my termination after the fact by painting me as someone who'd abused company time. The next day, I received a certified letter from Pinnacle's legal department alleging I had violated company policy by conducting personal business during work hours, specifically, attending medical appointments while logged in as working. They were demanding repayment of salary for those hours, threatening legal action if I didn't comply. It was breathtakingly vindictive, and strategically timed when I was most financially vulnerable. I called Leonard immediately. "They're trying to make me pay back wages for working during chemo. Can they do this?" His response was measured but firm. "They're bluffing, trying to intimidate you. Don't respond yet. I'm meeting with several board members tomorrow who weren't aware of the full circumstances of your termination. This could change things." Hope flickered briefly, but experience had taught me not to count on corporate decency. Instead, I turned to what I could control. I spent the evening organizing my extensive documentation, performance reviews, client testimonials, project results, and detailed logs of my work during treatment. I had been meticulous out of professional habit, never imagining I'd need these records for self-defense. As I compiled the evidence, a different kind of strategy began forming in my mind, one that wouldn't depend on Leonard's influence or the board's conscience. The hope Leonard had offered proved hollow. 2 days later, he called with disappointment heavy in his voice. "The board is backing Derek's decision," he said. "They're focused on the potential acquisition and don't want to create internal disruption." "I'm sorry, Valentina." "Did they understand I worked through cancer treatment? That I never took medical leave?" I asked, struggling to keep the bitterness from my voice. "They acknowledged your dedication, but ultimately deferred to Derek's assessment of your performance." Leonard sighed. There's something else you should know. I've resigned from the board in protest. This stunned me. Leonard had helped found Pinnacle, had remained on the board after retirement out of loyalty to the company he helped build. You didn't have to do that, I said softly. Yes, I did. This isn't the company I built anymore. He paused. Valentina, there's something bigger happening. I've been looking into Derek's background. At his previous company, Meridian Hotels, he executed a similar strategy, cutting experienced directors right before they were due significant stock options, then bringing in his own people at lower salaries. That's exactly what happened to me, I realized. My shares would have vested next month. Precisely. And there's more. The company that's looking to acquire Pinnacle, Axion Hospitality Group, Derek has connections there too. He worked with their CEO at Meridian. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. He's positioning himself for a role in the merged company, I concluded, making himself valuable by cutting costs and bringing in loyal people, and inflating short-term metrics at the expense of client relationships and long-term health, Leonard added grimly. It's a pattern. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by the evidence of my contributions to Pinnacle, printouts of performance reports, client testimonials, and project successes, all meaningless now in the face of corporate calculation. That evening, as David and the kids slept, I received an unexpected email from Kayla containing a forwarded message from Derek to the marketing team. As we implement our standardized approach, I expect resistance from legacy clients. This is normal and should not cause concern. Those unwilling to adapt to our more efficient model may not be the right fit for Pinnacle's future. Consider this an opportunity to identify which client relationships truly drive value versus those maintained out of historical inertia. Attached was a spreadsheet categorizing clients into retain and expendable columns. Garrison Publishing, despite its significant revenue contribution, was labeled expendable, presumably because they required customized services that didn't fit Derek's standardized approach. I felt a surge of protectiveness for these clients, many of whom I'd worked with for years, whose businesses depended on effective marketing in a competitive industry. Derek was willing to sacrifice them for short-term metrics that would make the company look attractive to acquirers. Then I noticed something else in the email thread, a message to Pinnacle's investors explaining the strategic workforce optimization that included my termination. Derek had blatantly misrepresented my performance and contribution, claiming the marketing department had been underperforming for years, despite documentation showing consistently exceeded targets under my leadership. The investors, who controlled Pinnacle's fate, were making decisions based on distorted information. In that moment, something shifted inside me. This wasn't just about my unfair termination anymore. It was about the deliberate dismantling of a company I'd helped build, the callous disregard for clients who trusted us, and the manipulation of people who deserved the truth. I opened my laptop and began a new document, titled simply, The Complete Record. It was time to provide some desperately needed transparency. By dawn, I had compiled a comprehensive dossier that told the true story of Pinnacle's marketing department, complete with performance data, client retention statistics, revenue growth figures, and testimonials. I included a timeline of my cancer treatment alongside documentation of projects completed during that period, presenting the facts without commentary. The evidence spoke for itself. The question was, what to do with it? I considered my options carefully. A wrongful termination lawsuit might eventually yield results, but litigation would be lengthy and expensive, luxuries I couldn't afford while managing cancer treatment. Going to the press risked appearing vindictive and could harm the company's innocent employees. I needed a direct line to those with immediate power to address the situation, Pinnacle's investors. Through my years at the company, I had occasionally interacted with representatives from the 3 major investment firms that backed Pinnacle. I had their contact information, but using it would be crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. As I deliberated, another email arrived from Jasmine. It's getting worse. Derek just fired Jamie for insubordination after she questioned the new approach with Garrison. They're talking about leaving. 3 other clients, too. Jamie had been with Pinnacle for 12 years. She had 2 kids in college. My decision crystallized. I would send my documentation to the investors, not as an act of revenge, but as a necessary correction to the misinformation they'd received. They had a right to know the true state of the company they'd invested in. I drafted a calm, factual cover letter explaining why I felt compelled to provide this information, emphasizing my concern for Pinnacle's long-term health rather than my personal grievance. I attached my comprehensive document, then scheduled the email to send the following morning. With that done, I finally went to bed, sleeping soundly for the first time since my termination. I woke to my phone ringing, a number I didn't recognize. It was Garrison Publishing's CEO, William Garrison himself. "Valentina, I just heard about Jamie. What the hell is happening at Pinnacle?" I gave him a measured response, focusing on organizational changes rather than personal criticisms. "This new standardized approach won't work for us," he said flatly. "Our hotels are built on unique literary identities. Cookie-cutter marketing would destroy everything we've built together." "I understand your concern," I replied carefully. "I want to offer you a position," he continued, surprising me. "Director of Marketing for Garrison Publishing, working directly with our hotel division. We've been impressed with your work for years, regardless of what that new COO claims." The offer was unexpected and precisely timed, a life raft when I most needed one. But there was a complication. "William, I should be transparent. I'm undergoing cancer treatment. It hasn't affected my work performance, but—" "My sister is a 5-year breast cancer survivor," he interrupted. "We have excellent health coverage and flexible work arrangements. Your health is a priority, not a liability." Tears pricked my eyes at this simple acknowledgement of my humanity. After we agreed on terms, including an immediate start date, I opened my laptop to cancel the scheduled email to Pinnacle's investors. My finger hovered over the button. With a new job secured, did I still need to send it? As I contemplated, a final email from Kayla arrived. "Derek just announced a company-wide salary reduction to improve our acquisition profile. Meanwhile, he's getting a retention bonus. People are panicking." I closed the cancellation window. The investors still needed to see the truth, not for my sake now, but for everyone else at Pinnacle who couldn't speak up. The email would send as scheduled, and whatever happened next would be the natural consequence of truth finally entering the conversation. At precisely 9 a.m., my email and its comprehensive attachments arrived in the inboxes of Pinnacle's 3 major investors. I had included everything: performance data showing the marketing department's consistent overachievement under my leadership, client testimonials specifically praising my work during my illness, medical documentation confirming I had worked through treatment, and the recent communications revealing Derek's misrepresentations and strategic dismantling of client relationships. The response was swift and seismic. By 10:30 a.m., Leonard called. "The investors are in an emergency meeting with the board. Your email caused quite the firestorm." At noon, Kayla texted, "Derek got called into a video conference with the investors. He looked like he was going to be sick." By 3 p.m., William Garrison, now my new employer, forwarded me an email he had received from Pinnacle's lead investor, requesting an urgent discussion about Garrison Publishing's relationship with the company. Similar emails had apparently gone out to all major clients. "They're in damage control mode," William commented. Too late, in my opinion. At 5:15 p.m., a formal email arrived from Eleanor Winters, the managing partner of Pinnacle's largest investment firm. "Ms. Sokolov, thank you for bringing these matters to our attention. We take the issues you've raised extremely seriously and have initiated an immediate review. I would appreciate the opportunity to speak with you directly. Please contact my assistant to arrange a time." I scheduled the call for the following morning, then turned my attention to preparing for my new position at Garrison. Whatever happened at Pinnacle now would happen without my direct involvement. The truth was in the right hands. That evening, as my family celebrated my new job over dinner, my phone buzzed with a Pinnacle company-wide email that had been forwarded by multiple former colleagues. Effective immediately, Derek Turner is no longer with Pinnacle Hospitality Group. Further organizational announcements will follow. Please direct any client concerns to your department director. The message was brief, corporate, and absolutely devastating in its implications. Truth, it seemed, still had power after all. 3 months later, I sat in my new office at Garrison Publishing, reviewing the marketing strategy for their upcoming literary-themed resort in Santa Fe. My health had improved significantly. The maintenance therapy was working, and my oncologist was optimistic about my prognosis. Pinnacle's story had continued to unfold without me, though I heard the details through various channels. The investors had installed an interim management team and halted the acquisition talks with Axion. An internal investigation had revealed that Derek's optimization strategy had been specifically designed to inflate short-term metrics at the expense of long-term client relationships, precisely to make the company attractive for acquisition. Several fired employees, including Jamie, had been reinstated with back pay. The standardized marketing approach had been abandoned in favor of the customized client strategies I had developed. The company was slowly rebuilding the trust that had been damaged during Derek's brief but destructive tenure. As for Derek, I heard he had left the state, his reputation in the hospitality industry irrevocably tarnished. The vindication should have felt sweeter, but mostly I felt relief that the harm he'd caused was being repaired. Eleanor Winters, the investment firm partner, had offered me a formal apology, and even suggested I return to Pinnacle in an executive role. I had declined politely, having found something better at Garrison, a company that valued not just my professional contributions but my humanity as well. My phone buzzed with a text from David. "Don't forget, dinner with the kids at 6:30, celebrating your last treatment." I smiled, gathering my things to head home early. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, a major campaign launch, a potential expansion of Garrison's literary hotel concept to international markets, and a full life beyond cancer and corporate politics. The past couldn't be changed, but it had led me here, to a place where my work was valued, my health was prioritized, and the future held promise rather than threat. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free.